Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video, and the subject of today's video is going to be on the Portland Trailblazers. I wanted to focus on Portland today because I feel like they're a team who, in the mix of all these big free agency moves, trades like Russell Westbrook to the Rockets and Chris Paul to the Thunder, let's see here. You got Kevin Durant and Kyrie to the Nets. You've got Anthony Davis getting traded to the Lakers. You've got D'Angelo Russell to Golden State. There's just a plethora of moves out there that have been going on. Kawhi and PG to the Clippers, Mike Conley and Bogdanovich to the Jazz. And I think Portland is one of the teams that has been very quiet, relatively speaking, at this off season. And yes, they got Hassan Whiteside for basically Myers Leonard and nothing else, but they did trade one other guy, but it was Mo Harkless, and he's like a spot starter. But basically, they got Hassan Whiteside for not very much, and that was really their big move. And then they swapped Evan Turner for Kent Bazemore, but I feel like those guys are pretty equal in value, honestly. Besides Kent Bazemore being able to shoot it a little bit better, but in general, I feel like they didn't improve that drastically compared to a Western Conference that, in my opinion, got a lot tougher between Houston getting Westbrook, the Lakers getting Davis, the Clippers getting Kawhi and Paul George, and then Utah getting Mike Conley and Bogdanovich. And I think Portland is a team where they're basically at the height of what they're going to be during this whole era of CJ McCollum and Dame Lillard playing together. I've always thought that this was a vastly overrated team. And last year, a lot of people kept saying when they made the Western Conference Finals, to all the doubters of Dame and CJ, look, they made the Western Conference Finals. But I think, in my opinion, it was an upset that they got there and beat Denver in the first place. And then also, I think that they were one of the weakest Western Conference teams in recent memory. They got swept, so it's not like they put up any sort of a fight. Yes, they had a few leads in the third quarter and stuff and gave them up, but I think anyone who knew that that matchup was going to go on between Golden State and them knew that they were going to lose pretty handily. If you look at Golden State's record versus Portland in the playoffs over their last three playoff matchups in, let's see here, 2016, 17, and then now 19. Over those three seasons in the playoffs, Golden State is 12-1 versus Portland. So I feel like that's a pretty clear indication that whenever Portland has gone up against like serious contention, that they've lost. Also, even the year before this past year, they lost in the first round to a decent but not even that good Pelicans team. So I've never really believed in this team. They just seem like a team that's always going to be there but never going to be that great. That to me they're sort of like the Memphis Grizzlies of the early 2010s decade, where the Grizzlies were always a first or second round exit, and they did make the Western Conference Finals one year, but that was really only because the Thunder weren't a contender because Westbrook was out, and they kind of just got there because of injuries rather than because they were so great, which is what I feel like this Trailblazers team was, and that they weren't last year. They weren't the second best team in the Western Conference. They just got a favorable matchup in that LeBron missed 30 games and the Lakers weren't in the playoffs. The Rockets had an equal record to them, but because of tiebreakers, the Blazers got to play the Nuggets instead of the Warriors in the second round. So they've gotten a lot of breaks, but I think that if they make some certain moves here, they could be a serious contender come the regular season and the playoffs, and they could drastically improve. Although everyone's ranting and raving about this new NBA being all about duos, I think Portland just lacks the depth that they can rely solely on their duo. I think that they would really need a third piece, a third consistent scorer to be serious, or just a really great depth, like adding maybe three really good rotational guys or one like all-star caliber guy. So, with all that being said, I'm going to go through five trade scenarios that I think could greatly improve Portland and vault them from essentially an underdog to a serious title contender. So, these are in no particular order. It's not like I'm going from the least good to the best or anything. I'm just kind of randomly going through these, and um, I'll try to maybe I'll stack it so that the ones that are a little less interesting are towards the beginning, and the best ones we can save for last. So I'll start with the one that's probably the most dry in a sense, and that would be Portland sending Hassan Whiteside and Kent Bazemore to Charlotte in exchange for Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Nicholas Batum, and Malik Monk. Okay, so why would Portland do this trade? First of all, Kent Bazemore and Hassan Whiteside are both expiring contracts that total $46 million. So they get that money off the books. It would have come off the books anyways, but that's really the incentive for Charlotte, actually, when I talk about why Charlotte would do this trade. After this coming season, in which everyone expects them to be bad and they're not really trying to even make the playoffs, because of this trade, they'll have basically around $50 million in cap space besides cap space that they were going to already have from their own team. So they'll have a high draft pick after next season and $50 million in cap space to do with as they please. And then as for Portland's side as to why they do this trade, honestly, even the Hassan Whiteside trade in the first place didn't make that much sense to me because they already have Nurkic starting at center, and I don't really feel like they need two centers that can't space the floor. So Whiteside really didn't serve much purpose being in Portland unless they were going to trade either him or Nurkic again. So I think it makes sense to deal Whiteside, and then I think essentially trading Bazemore makes sense because Nicholas Batum is really like an even swap, I think, in that Nicholas Batum can essentially bring you what Kent Bazemore was going to bring you. Batum will bring you 12 points a night on decent shooting splits, much like Bazemore, but like not as efficient as he could be. But basically, what Batum brings is he's a much better defender as far as he's 6'8" instead of like Bazemore 6'6", and he's a lot longer. If you've ever seen Nick Batum's wingspan, it's a lot longer, so he's a better defender. And then as far as the other pieces in this trade, Malik Monk is sort of like a project. Hasn't been that good so far in the NBA, but he could still improve. And then Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is basically like a younger, more athletic, in my opinion, slightly better version and replacement of Mo Harkless and Al-Farouq Aminu, sort of that big small forward or athletic power forward type that they had in between Al-Farouq Aminu and Mo Harkless, and they lost both of those guys in this offseason, so he'd be a good replacement for them. So basically, why would Portland do this trade? They get an upgrade at their power forward slot in Michael Kidd-Gilchrist over. They didn't really have a starting power forward at this point unless they wanted to start Anthony Tolliver. So I think that they get a starting small power forward with Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. They basically Batum and Bazemore are even, so you just basically get the same type of guy back. And then they give up Whiteside, but he was basically a duplicate with Yusuf Nurkic. They did different things as far as Nurkic is more offensive and Whiteside's more defensive, but because neither of them spaced the floor, it just wouldn't work having them play at the same time. And Whiteside is like at the same time way too good to just be a backup center, getting paid nearly $30 million. So it makes sense to deal him. And then Malik Monk is just a project who can be your backup shooting guard behind CJ McCollum, sort of like a replacement for Seth Curry. Okay, moving on to the next trade here, I have again another one where Portland would basically be trading to acquire depth. This is a three-team one actually between the Blazers, the Heat, and the Wizards. So as we know, the Heat are seeking another all-star caliber player to play alongside Jimmy Butler. So in this trade, I have Washington sending Bradley Beal to the Heat. I have the Heat sending Kelly Olynyk, Justice Winslow, and Derrick Jones Jr. to Portland. And then I have Portland sending Hassan Whiteside and a 2023 first-round pick to Washington. And then also the Heat would be sending a 2024 first-round pick to Washington. So essentially, Washington would be giving up Bradley Beal for 2 future first-round picks and Hassan Whiteside, who was an expiring contract, and will clear up around $30 million in cap space that they can use next offseason when John Wall is supposed to be healthy again after this year. Going into the 2020 to 2021 season, he's supposed to be healthy. So you could pair him and whoever you use that cap space on that Hassan Whiteside's contract expiring would clear for. So you could have something interesting in Washington, and also the 2 first-round picks I think are pretty fair along with getting all that cap space. In Miami, you give up a lot of role players basically and nice promising young players in Justice Winslow and Derrick Jones Jr., who I'm pretty high on both those guys. I think as far as this trade, yes, you're giving up Justice Winslow, who's maybe your best young player. You're giving up Derrick Jones, who's a project but has a lot of potential. And then Kelly Olynyk's sort of like a backup center slash starting power forward, so he's good, but I don't think that Miami necessarily needs him. And I think in return, you get Bradley Beal, who's the best player overall in this trade. So I think Miami has a clear reason for doing it, and they still would have a decent team afterwards. They'd have a starting lineup probably of like Dragic, Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler, James Johnson, and Bam Adebayo, with like Dion Waiters off the bench along with Myers Leonard. So they'd still be pretty decent and probably would be like a top 4 seed maybe in this new Eastern Conference. And then as far as why Portland would do this trade, they again get a lot of depth that they I think would actually be lacking. So again, this is gonna be a common theme throughout this trade, is I have Hassan Whiteside in a lot of the trades. So let me just say it now, so I don't have to say it for every trade. Hassan Whiteside and Nurkic, if they basically I don't think would do very well coexisting because of number one spacing, number two uh, they play the same position, and so it just wouldn't work really well. And I think both guys are worthy of being starters, but there's just not enough minutes to go around. So I have Hassan in a lot of these trades, so that's why, if you're wondering. But Portland gets a lot of depth in return. They're starting their lineup and bench after this would probably look like Dame, CJ, and then probably starting at small forward you have Bazemore or Rodney Hood. Let's say Rodney Hood. Power forward you'd have Justice, and center you'd have Nurkic with a bench of Bazemore, Zach Collins, Kelly Olynyk, and Derek Jones Jr. So I think that that's a pretty good bench, and I think that Derek Jones, as I say, is an underrated guy who would be kind of a nice pickup in return. So I like this trade for Portland. Next, I have another 3-team trade which sends Hassan Whiteside from Portland to the Hawks. The Hawks send Chandler Parsons and Brooklyn's 2020 first-round pick to the Thunder. Portland also sends a 2024 first-round pick to the Thunder. And then the Thunder send Gallinari and Robertson to Portland. So why do the Hawks do this trade? Basically, Chandler Parsons is expiring money. Hassan Whiteside is expiring money, but he's a much better player than Parsons. And they really do lack a quality starting NBA center. Alex Len is slated as their center right now, and I think Hassan Whiteside's a pretty big upgrade over him. So I think they have clear reason to do it. It's essentially trading Brooklyn's first round pick next year for Hassan Whiteside, which I think is pretty even value. The Hawks starting lineup after this would look like probably Trae Young, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and Hassan Whiteside, with a bench of like Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Bembry, and Evan Turner. So I think that's a pretty good bench, and this team could even be a fringe playoff team with that lineup. As far as why OKC would do it, Andre Roberson and Danilo Gallinari are not those guys that are going to lead your franchise. They're dudes that are going to be your third and fourth best players on a playoff team. But really, right now, they're in no position to be a playoff team, and so those guys don't really make sense, especially with their contract values totaling to $33 million. That's a lot of money you could clear off the books. So by trading these guys, they're going to free up a lot more cap space because Chandler Parsons is expiring. So basically, OKC is clearing $33 million in cap space for next offseason, along with getting 2 first-round picks for 2 guys who are good, but at the same rate, right now, they wouldn't really help OKC do what they're trying to do. And then for Portland, you give up Hassan Whiteside, which I've talked about, and then you give up a first-round pick, and you get Danilo Gallinari, who to me is like the perfect third option for this team because he can space it and kind of score however you need. He can score off ball, he can score on ball, he can shoot the 3-pointer. Then you get Andre Roberson, who is a really good perimeter defender, and I think could make up for some of the backcourt defensive shortcomings of Dame and CJ. So I think this is maybe the best trade I've come up with for Portland out of all these. They get some depth in that they get 2 guys back in replacement for 1, and both guys are guys that can play 30 plus minutes a night. Starting lineup for Portland after this would likely look like Dame, CJ, Robertson, Gallinari, and Nurkic, with Rodney Hood, Kent Bazemore, and Zach Collins coming off the bench. The next trade I have is just 2 teams trading, and that would be the Spurs and Portland. And let's see here, what do I have? Okay. I've got Yusuf Nurkic and Kent Bazemore and a first round pick to the Spurs in exchange for DeMar DeRozan. Why do I have this? Why would the Spurs do this trade? Well, they're kind of coming to the end of the road as far as this playoff contingent, and I think honestly it's time for a rebuild, whether they're willing to admit it or not. I think if the Spurs are really stubborn about this trade, they could demand 2 first round picks instead of 1 from Portland, which I think if I was Portland I would do because I think DeMar DeRozan is good enough to be worth that. Portland does give up some depth here in that they're giving up 2 players in exchange for 1, but they are getting the best player in the trade and they would have a really good big 3. As far as why the Spurs would do it, they get somebody to plug their starting center hole and Yusuf Nurkic, because I'm of the opinion that Jakob Poeltl is not yet ready to be an NBA starting center. So for the Spurs, you'd have a lineup probably looking like DeJounte Murray, shooting guard, you'd probably have Bryn Forbes, small forward, probably Rudy Gay, power forward Aldridge, and Nurkic at center with a bench of Jakob Poeltl, Damari Carroll, Patty Mills, Marco Bellinelli, so Derek White. So they'd have a pretty stacked bench. And then as for Portland, your starting lineup would be like Dame, CJ, DeMar DeRozan. Power forward, you'd probably go Skal Labissiere and then or Anthony Tolliver actually, and then center you'd probably go Zach Collins. So they do give up depth in the starting lineup. Probably overall as a team they improve a little bit, but I think as far as in the playoffs when your roster shortens, as far as you go from playing 10 guys to maybe playing 8 or 7, I think this is when this trade would come up big because you could play DeMar 40 minutes a night. You could play CJ and Dame 40 minutes a night, and then you could play Rodney Hood could even play like a little bit of small ball power forward because he is 6'8", 230, so he's not that small. He could be fine with it. And then you still have Zach Collins and Labissiere and Anthony Tolliver to play the 4 and the 5. And then the trade that I think a lot of people have talked about and maybe makes the most sense, I have Yusuf Nurkic, Kent Bazemore, a 2026 first round pick, and a 2022 second round pick going to Cleveland in exchange for Kevin Love to the Blazers. Kevin Love makes a ton of sense on the Blazers. They can have a starting lineup of Dame, CJ, Kent Bazemore, Kevin Love, Zach Collins with a bench of the other guys that I've been mentioning throughout here. He's a really good third option for a team as he was in Cleveland. As far as skill and talent, he might be about equal to CJ, but I think he'd probably be the third wheel on this team because of being a little bit older than the other 2 guys. I think he would just work great though. He provides spacing to let the other guys penetrate and do their thing inside, as well as those 2 guys are good spacers as well. So this offense would be really well spaced. I'd love to see what a lineup of like Dame, CJ, pick your poison between Rodney Hood and Kent Bazemore at the 3 with the other guy on the bench. Tolliver at the 4 and Kevin Love at the 5. That would be a pretty bad defensive team for sure, but offensively they'd have such beautiful spacing. It'd be really fun to watch offensively. As for Cleveland, they get a really good young center in Nurkic. They get Kent Bazemore basically as an expiring contract and salary filler. And then they get a first round pick, which I think is pretty fair for a 31-year-old injury prone all-star like Kevin Love. So overall, I think pretty even. So there you have it, guys. Those are 5 trades that I think Portland should consider and would be good to improve them and make them much more of a contender. I do think that they have to do something if they want to keep up with this very crowded Western Conference. I hope that they do. It's always interesting to see moves go down and teams try to improve and work their way up in their conference. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave comments or thoughts on the trades I came up with or just the videos in general below. Hope you guys again enjoyed the video and I hope you have a good day. See you next time. Bye.